The current state TDX water towers are in right now is and I mean, it's alright, but it feels just a little bit outdated. I think most of us can agree that the concept of water towers as a whole in TDX deserves a dedicated update with reworks and new towers. But enough blabbering. What would a water tower update even look like?
Soldier boy, tell me. Hey, I got this new dance for y'all called the Soldier boy. You just gotta punch, then crank back 3 times from left to right. Soldier boy, crank that Soldier boy, that Superman, that crank that Soldier, crank that Soldier, crank that Soldier, Soldier boy, why me crank it, why me crank that Soldier boy, that Superman, that crank that Soldier, crank that Soldier, crank that Soldier.
This is Operation Poseidon, an update concept that reworks the Warship and adds 2 more water towers. Sorry, patrol boat. But before we begin, here's a quick clarification to keep in mind. Normal DPS accounts for the DPS of all attacks and abilities except for anti-air and spawned units. Anti-air DPS only accounts for the DPS of anti-air attacks. Unit DPS only accounts for the attack DPS of spawned units and not their ram damage DPS. Additionally, I would like to give a huge shout out to Frontic315 and these other goobers for helping me film. This video would not have been possible without them, as well as Remy, Noobjoiner, and Kia for providing me with balancing feedback for these concepts. Now, are these concept towers actually balanced? Let's just say they are a bit on the strong side, but without further ado, let's start with the first tower, the Destroyer. Costing 25,000 gold and requiring rank 40, the Destroyer will help bridge the power gap between the patrol boat and the Warship, primarily serving as a mid to late game jack-of-all-trades tower, while also having a smaller placement footprint. The base tower costs $10,000 to place down and has 2,000 HP. It is armed with 5 cannons that deal 40 damage each, with a reload time of 4 seconds and a splash radius of 3. Its total normal DPS is 50. Starting off with the top path, we have radar upgrade for $2,000. The range increases from 400 to 500 and the Destroyer gains 250 more HP. The DPS remains the same, the total cost is now $12,000. The second upgrade is anti-air for $5,000. The Destroyer gains a new attack, Flak Cannon. This attack can only attack air enemies and fires in bursts of 4. The Destroyer also gains 250 more HP. The normal DPS stays the same, and the anti-air DPS is 26.6. The total cost is now $17,000. The third upgrade, Missile Frigate, costs $60,000. The Destroyer now deals 80 damage per shot, the reload time is reduced to 0.75 seconds, and gains 150 more range. However, the number of cannons is also reduced to 1. The flat cannons are upgraded into a Sea Whiz that fires in full auto but doesn't have any splash damage. The Destroyer also gains a third attack, a Harpoon Missile Launcher. This missile launcher deals 800 damage every 10 seconds with 5 splash radius and a much larger range of 1,000. Finally, the Destroyer gains a Seahawk helicopter that deals 100 damage every second. The Destroyer gains 12,500 more HP, the normal DPS is now 280, and the anti-air DPS is 100. The total cost is now $67,000. The fourth upgrade, Missile Destroyer, costs $65,000. The main gun now deals 600 damage, but the reload time is increased to 4 seconds. There are now 2 Sea Whizzes, and the damage increases from 10 to 20. The Harpoon missile launcher is upgraded to fire every 5 seconds, and the range is also increased by 250. The destroyer gains a 4th attack, Tomahawk Missile Barrage. This attack deals 1000 damage and fires in bursts of 6, but with a lengthy reload time of 15 seconds. The Seahawk helicopter remains the same, and the destroyer gains 5000 more HP. The normal DPS is now 695.71, and the anti-air DPS is 400. The total cost is now $132,000. The max top half upgrade is Experimental Mass Driver, which costs $185,000. The main gun is upgraded into a powerful railgun that deals 10,000 damage, while the range is greatly increased to 1,250. The reload time, however, is increased to 8 seconds. The rest of the attacks remain the same. The normal DPS is now 1,795.71, and the anti-air DPS is 400. The total cost is now $317,000. The bottom path starts with crew training for $5,000. This upgrade reduces the reload time to 3 seconds and adds 250 more HP. The normal DPS is increased to 66.67, and the total cost is now $15,000. The second upgrade, Larger Shells, costs $7,000. The main guns deal 10 more damage, and the destroyer gains 250 more HP. The DPS is now 83.34, and the total cost is now $22,000. The third upgrade, Corvette, costs $30,000. The main gun now deals 100 damage, and the reload time is reduced to 0.65 seconds. However, the number of attacks is reduced to 1. The destroyer also gains a new attack, Anti-Air Missile, which also replaces the flat cannons if they are purchased. The anti-air missiles deal 100 damage every second and have 650 range. The destroyer also gains the Seahawk helicopter, which does 100 damage every second. The destroyer gains 9,500 more HP, the normal DPS is now 253, the anti-air DPS is 100, and the total cost is now $42,000. The fourth upgrade, the Littoral Combat Ship, costs $95,000. The main gun is unchanged, but the anti-air missile is upgraded into the anti-air SAM, which now fires in bursts of 6. Each attack deals 400 damage, and the reload time is increased to 3 seconds, while the range is greatly increased to 1,250. The destroyer also gains the Hellfire missile attack that deals 300 damage every 3 seconds, while also having 1,250 range. The Seahawk helicopter is upgraded to deal 200 damage every second, and finally the destroyer gains an ability, Rail Trooper Deployment. This ability spawns in a Sea Stallion helicopter that deploys 3 rail troopers anywhere you want on the map, with an 80-second cooldown. The destroyer gains 5,000 more HP, the normal DPS is now 453, the unit DPS is 399, and the anti-air DPS is 533.33. And the total cost is now $137,000. Finally, the max bottom path upgrade, Covert Operations, costs $145,000. The main guns, anti-air SAM, and Hellfire missiles remain the same. The Seahawk helicopter is upgraded to deal 800 damage every 2 seconds with a larger splash radius, while the Rail Trooper Deployment ability is upgraded to the Drop Trooper Deployment ability. This ability now spawns in a Super Stallion helicopter that deploys 3 drop troopers anywhere you want on the map, with a cooldown of 120 seconds. The destroyer gains 8000 HP, the normal DPS is now 653, the unit DPS is 1800, the anti-air DPS is 533.33, and the total cost is now $282,000. Now that we've covered the destroyer and its upgrades, let's do a quick overview where I'll explain what the role each path plays. The top path destroyer serves as a jack of all trades, long-range damage dealer. Its powerful railgun, double Sea Whiz, and Seahawk helicopter are more focused on single target DPS, while the rest of the weapons are focused more on dealing splash damage. The bottom path destroyer has a much stronger anti-air and Seahawk helicopter, but has less consistent DPS due to the majority of its firepower coming from the drop trooper deployment ability. Another notable weakness both paths share is the complete lack of stealth detection. In my opinion, this will help balance out the many strengths the destroyer already has, as the destroyer will now have to rely on other towers to deal with stealth enemies. I can see both paths being viable, the top path being very reliable for all aspects and easy to use but comes with a heftier price tag, while the bottom path is more of a wild card, having higher potential DPS but less splash damage and reliability. However, the bottom path also has a much stronger anti-air and Seahawk helicopter that is both more reliable and powerful than the top path in every way, which means that even players who want to play it safe can still utilize the bottom path for anti-air purposes or for its significantly stronger Seahawk helicopter. The second tower this concept update will add is the Submarine. And before we even get into this tower, I just wanted to say that this thing was a nightmare to balance and create, because the whole concept of torpedoes, a submarine's main weapon, just doesn't work in the context of TDX. Anyways, the submarine costs 40,000 gold and requires rank 64. This tower will be the first water-based support tower and heavily relies on its abilities to be useful. The base tower costs $7,500 to place down and has 1,500 HP. It is armed with a single cannon that deals 30 damage with a reload time of 0.75 seconds and a splash radius of 1. The total DPS is 37.5. The submarine also comes with two abilities, Submerge and Unsubmerge. Upon activating Submerge, the submarine gains a global 10% range buff that can stack with EDJ and Commander, while also becoming completely invulnerable to all damage sources when submerged. However, the submarine is also unable to attack when submerged. The ability lasts 40 seconds and has a 75-second cooldown. Do know that the ability cooldown starts immediately upon usage, so a submarine that submerges for the entire duration will only have to wait 35 seconds before it can submerge again, while if you use the second ability, Unsubmerge, after let's say 10 seconds, the submarine will have to wait 65 seconds before submerging again. Starting off with the top path, we have larger shells for $2,500. This upgrade increases the damage to 50 and increases the HP of the submarine by 250. The normal DPS is now 62.5 and the total cost is $10,000. The second upgrade is Flat Cannon, which adds a flat cannon to the submarine and costs $3,500. It fires in bursts of 4, deals 20 damage, and has a reload time of 2 seconds. The submarine also gains 250 more HP. The normal DPS is 62.5 and the anti-air DPS is 26.66. The total cost is now $13,500. The third upgrade, Cruise Missile, costs $20,000. This upgrade removes the flat cannon and the main gun and replaces them with a cruise missile barrage attack. This attack fires in bursts of 6 and deals 1000 damage with a 15-second reload time. The range is also greatly increased to 1250. The submarine gains 8000 HP, the normal DPS is now 285.71, and the total cost is now $33,500. The fourth upgrade, Ballistic Missile, costs $80,000 and replaces the Cruise Missile Barrage attack with a much stronger Ballistic Missile Barrage attack. This attack deals 2000 damage and has a larger splash radius, while also having a quicker burst interval. The tower gains 5,000 more HP, the normal DPS is now 666.66, and the total cost is $113,500. Finally, the max level top path upgrade is Nuclear Strike capability for $400,000. The attack remains the same, but the submarine gains a new ability, Tactical Nuclear Strike. This ability fires a tactical nuclear missile that deals 300,000 damage with a splash radius of 100, but comes with a lengthy cooldown of 240 seconds. Additionally, the ability has a 10-second launch sequence that forces the submarine to unsubmerge. During this launch sequence, the submarine cannot attack, and if destroyed can cause massive collateral damage to nearby towers. The tower gains 5,000 HP, the normal DPS is now 1,866.66, and the total cost is $513,500. The bottom path starts with the upgraded ballast, which costs $1,500. The attack remains the same, but the submerge ability now lasts 50 seconds instead of 40 seconds. The tower gains 250 more HP, the normal DPS is 37.5, and the total cost is $9,000. The second upgrade, Periscope, costs $1,500. It increases the range of the main gun to 450 and increases the global submerge range buff to 15%. The submarine gains 250 more HP, the normal DPS remains at 37.5, and the total cost is now $10,000. The third upgrade, Sonar, costs $10,000. The submarine loses all of its attacks, but its submerge ability now lasts 55 seconds, reveals stealth enemies, and deals 50 DPS to all enemies on screen, while still providing the 15% range buff. The tower gains 3,000 more HP, the normal DPS is now 36.66, and the total cost is now $20,000. The fourth upgrade, Advanced Reconnaissance, costs $30,000. This upgrade adds the Cruise Missile Barrage attack, which deals 1,000 damage and fires in bursts of 6, with a range of 1,250. Additionally, the Submerge ability now lasts 60 seconds, deals 100 DPS to all enemies on screen, and grants a 5% ability cooldown reduction buff in addition to the 15% global range buff. The tower gains 2,500 more HP, the normal DPS is now 365.7, and the total cost is $50,000. The max level bottom path upgrade is EMP Strike capability for $500,000. The Cruise Missile Barrage attack is replaced with the Ballistic Missile Barrage, which deals 2,000 damage, has a larger splash radius, and a quicker burst interval. The Submerge ability becomes even stronger, now providing a 10% ability cooldown reduction buff, while also dealing 200 DPS to all enemies on screen. And finally, the submarine gains a new ability, EMP Missile Strike. This ability fires an EMP missile that deals 10,000 damage with a splash radius of 25 and a cooldown of 180 seconds. Enemies and bosses caught in the explosion are stunned for 15 seconds. Similarly to the Tactical Nuclear Strike, this ability also has a 10-second launch sequence that forces it to unsubmerge, and will stun nearby towers for 15 seconds if it is destroyed during the firing sequence. The tower gains 5,000 HP, the normal DPS is now 879.29, and the total cost is $550,000. The Submarine is an interesting tower that starts off as a decent early mid-game option with early anti-air that transitions into extremely powerful late-game support. The submerge ability gives the submarine more survivability than the destroyer despite having less HP, which can also lead to the submarine having a second role of baiting boss attacks without having to sell and replace them. The top path is meant to provide long-range burst splash damage similar to the top path destroyer, albeit having less versatility due to the lack of air defense and constant DPS. The max level top path turns the submarine into the ultimate splash damage dealer. I can see the tactical nuclear strike ability being very useful against specific waves in endless mode or for whatever nightmare mode throws at us. The bottom path is more support oriented, as the submerge ability provides several useful buffs and also reveals stealth enemies. The max level bottom path gives the submarine an extremely powerful crowd control ability that will certainly be useful against bosses and future enemies. While both of these abilities are extremely strong, I still think they are quite balanced because of the launch sequence feature. Firstly, having to wait 10 seconds requires you to plan ahead and learn when to use the ability for the most effective outcome. Additionally, using these ability against bosses is a high risk, high reward play. A successful strike can provide lots of value, while a failed one can cause millions of dollars worth of damage or temporarily disable your defense. I hope that these features will add more depth to these abilities rather than just being spammed as soon as they recharge. Finally, the submarine also cannot detect stealth when attacking unless submerged, which makes it perfect for supporting other towers that lack stealth detection. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for, or at least I hope you are, the Warship rework. Because the destroyer and the submarine can be used for early mid-game, the new warship will be strictly for late game only. Additionally, for balancing reasons, I've decided to give the warship a placement limit of 12 for solo, 6 for duo, 4 for trio, and 3 for quad. Finally, all DPS values will be calculated as effective DPS because not all weapons on the warship can fire at the same time, so I'll only be taking into account the weapons that can fire in the broadside position. The base warship now costs $85,000 to place down, but comes with some serious firepower. The 12 main guns each do 200 damage with a splash radius of 5 and a reload time of 8 seconds. They have 500 range as well as a 150 range dead zone. Additionally, the warship comes with 12 secondary guns too, with 8 of them being effective. They can do 50 damage with a splash radius of 3 and a reload time of 4 seconds. They have 500 range and no dead zone. The warship also comes with 4 anti-air flak cannons, with 2 of them being effective. They fire in bursts of 4, deal 20 damage, and have a 2-second reload time. Finally, unlike other towers, the warship cannot passively heal. The tower has 20,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is 400, and the effective anti-air DPS is 53.33. The first top path upgrade is Rangefinder for $5,000. This upgrade increases the range of the main guns and the secondary guns to 600. The warship gains 5,000 more HP, the effective normal DPS remains at 400, the effective anti-air DPS remains at 53.33, and the total cost is now $90,000. The second top path upgrade, Larger Shells, costs $20,000. The main gun now deals 250 damage, and the secondary guns now do 75 damage. The warship gains 5,000 more HP, the effective normal DPS is now 525, the effective anti-air DPS is 53.33, and the total cost is now $110,000. The third top path upgrade, Battle Cruiser, costs $100,000. The main guns now deal 1,500 damage, the splash radius is increased to 7, but the reload time is also increased to 15 seconds. Both the range and the dead zone increases to 800 and 200 respectively, and the amount of attacks reduces to 9. The secondary guns now deal 100 damage and also have their range increased to 800. The amount of flak cannons are increased to 14, with 8 being effective. The warship gains 70,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is 1,100, the effective anti-air DPS is 213.33, and the total cost is now $210,000. The fourth top path upgrade, Battleship, costs $115,000. The main gun damage is increased to 2,500 and the splash radius is increased to 9. However, the reload time is also increased to 19 seconds. The range is increased to 1,250 and the dead zone stays the same. The amount of secondary guns is increased to 20, with 10 being effective, and the amount of flat cannons are increased to 16, but still have only 8 being effective. The warship gains 200,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is now 1,434.21, and the effective anti-air DPS is still 213.33. The total cost is now $325,000. Finally, the Max Top Path upgrade, Modern Refit, costs $200,000. The main guns remain the same, but the number of secondary guns is reduced to 12, with only 6 being effective. The 16 flat cannons are upgraded into 4 Sea Whizzes, which deal 20 damage, fire in full auto, and have a reload time of 0.1 seconds. The warship also gains 2 new attacks, being the Harpoon Missile Launcher, which deals 800 damage every 2.5 seconds, and the Tomahawk Missile Barrage, which deals 1000 damage and fires in bursts of 24. The warship gains 100,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is 2,309.59, and the effective anti-air DPS is 800. The total cost is now $525,000. Now, onto the bottom path upgrade, Reinforced Hull for $2,500. The warship gains 20,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is still 400, and the anti-air DPS is still 53.33. The total cost is now $87,500. The second bottom path upgrade, Damage Control, for $10,000 adds the Damage Control ability. It heals 20% of the ship over 20 seconds, but also stops the warship from attacking. The effective normal DPS is still 400, and the effective anti-air DPS is 53.33. The total cost is now $97,500. The third bottom path upgrade, Artillery Ship, costs $80,000. The warship loses its secondary guns, but the main guns become a lot stronger. They now deal 300 damage, reload in 6 seconds, and have 700 range, and the number of attacks increases from 12 to 15. The flat cannons become stronger too, now dealing 50 damage, firing in full auto, and having a shorter reload time. The warship gains 80,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is 750, the effective anti-air DPS is 125, and the total cost is now $177,500. The fourth bottom path upgrade is Dreadnought for $170,000. The amount of main guns is reduced to 12, the reload time is increased to 19 seconds, but the damage, splash radius, and range are increased to 2,500, 9, and 850 respectively. The dead zone also increases to 200. The 12 secondary guns are back, but only 6 are effective. They now deal 200 damage with 7 splash radius and an 8-second reload time with 850 range. The flat cannons stay the same. The warship gains 230,000 HP, the effective normal DPS is 1,703.95, and the effective anti-air DPS is 125, and the total cost is now $367,500. The max bottom path upgrade, Super Dreadnought, costs $300,000. The main guns now deal 7,500 damage with a splash radius of 13, but the reload time is increased to 24 seconds, and the number of attacks is reduced to 9, and the dead zone is increased to 250. The secondary gun damage is increased to 800, and the amount of flat cannons increases to 12, with 6 of them being effective. The warship also gains a new ability, Cycle Ammunition. This ability switches what type of ammunition the main guns use. There are 2 ammunition types, being the high explosive rounds, which deal 7,500 damage and have a splash radius of 13, and the armor piercing rounds, which deal 9,000 damage, have a splash radius of 1, and also ignore explosive resistance. Upon activating this ability, the warship takes 24 seconds to switch ammunition types, where it cannot fire. The warship gains 150,000 HP, the effective high explosive normal DPS is 3,412.5, the effective armor piercing normal DPS is 3,975, the effective anti-air DPS is 375, and the total cost is now $657,500. Okay, we've got a lot to unpack here. I'll start with a bit of an overview of each path and what roles they play, and then go into some of the more possibly controversial changes. The top path warship has a very long range with its powerful main guns and missiles. However, you can increase its DPS and versatility by placing it closer to the path so that the secondary guns and seaways are in range. The longer range attacks and smaller dead zone also make it much easier to position than the bottom path warship, making it an overall simple to use and reliable tower. The bottom path warship is a lot more complicated to use. A larger dead zone and lower range makes positioning tricky. Combine that with the fairly long reload time and the cycle ammunition ability, it is clear that the bottom path warship will require more attention and micromanagement to be effective. However, you are rewarded with the sheer damage it deals, along with the cycle ammunition ability that allows the bottom path warship to deal high single target damage that ignores explosive resistance. Additionally, both paths cannot detect stealth as well. Now, onto the possibly controversial changes. I'm going to start with the HP values, as it is one of the more interesting changes I made. The warship is now able to tank multiple boss attacks and is a lot more resilient overall. However, because the warship does not passively heal, the only way to repair it is through the damage control ability. Due to how this ability works, the tower is disabled during repairs and takes almost 7 minutes to fully heal from 0 to maximum HP. This makes the warship's HP an additional resource to take into account, as you'll need to decide when to use the ability and when to spend the extra money to replace the warship. I hope this adds more depth to the tower and makes it a lot more engaging to use. Another big feature I added was the dead zone. While I agree this may be a bit controversial, I believe it serves as another way to balance the warship. A tower this strong shouldn't be casually placed in the water without careful consideration. The dead zone feature will ideally introduce more strategic depth, allowing players to plan where to position the warship for optimal use. Finally, let's talk about the starting price. $85,000 is extremely expensive for a base tower. Now this does sound like a bad idea on paper, and you know what? It is. If this warship rework were added to the game right now, the tower would be in a much worse spot balancing wise. So if this is such a bad idea, why did I rework the warship this way? Well, because the warship rework only works if the other towers, being the destroyer and the submarine, are added in the same update. You see, the mid-game roles the current lower level warship plays has been transferred over to the destroyer and the submarine. In other words, the destroyer and submarine are here so the warship can truly shine as the ultimate late game tower. This also explains why I decided to introduce a placement limit to both balance how strong each warship can be and to not overshadow the destroyer and submarine. Therefore, I think it is justified to have a base tower that costs as much and is only viable for late game and more difficult game modes like Nightmare Mode. Before I end the video, I wanted to mention that I have a YouTube membership now. As you know, videos like these take a lot of time and resources to make, so if you enjoy what I make and want to support me directly while also getting some perks like watching my videos a day earlier, a text shout out, and getting some of these awesome cosmetics, consider joining. Your support is greatly appreciated, and low-key, I'm like hella broke, so this would definitely help me make higher quality videos faster. Bye bye!